All right, welcome back to another video here on Free Will Photos. Today, what we're gonna do is take a look at a photo that I created in the past day or so. And I wanna kind of walk you through the mindset and even talk you through some of the masking tools. Now, this is a great example of how using masks inside of the local adjustments section in ON1 Photo RAW can really enhance an image. And then you can take it over to the effects to stylize it. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into the computer and just unpack each of these masks. All right, so here we are inside of Photo RAW 2026, and this is the file essentially straight out of camera. There is a little bit of work that I did here in the develop section. If I hold down the backslash key, you can see there's some saturation adjustment that's going on, but that's literally all that I've done to the image. I haven't done anything else. I didn't change the camera profile or anything else of the sort, all right? Now, where a lot of the heavy lifting for this look is coming in inside of the local adjustment section. And the local adjustment section is a phenomenal place to really shape the light in your image. And that's what I did to really create that look. So the first one here, and we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. The first one is essentially just the light that's coming in from the upper right corner here. So if I press the O key to show you the mask, you can see that from the upper right corner coming down over the top portion of the leaf, I've just feathered that. So if I hit the letter M to get the masking bug, you can see that I have the majority of this filter off of the canvas. And that's something that you should probably consider doing in your own edits with, just trying to experiment with how to feather the look into your image. You don't have to have the actual feather tool on your photo, all right? And so that's what we have here. Now I'm gonna press the letter O to turn that one off. And then we are going to jump to our next mask, which is the bottom section. Now, with that being said, this bottom section, I just wanted to darken it down because there wasn't anything interesting down there. I want to draw the viewer's eye into the leaf, all right? And so I just minus 2.5 exposure, and that's literally all I did. And this, my friends, is just a linear gradient from the bottom, and I stopped right at the bottom of the leaf. That's essentially all that you need to know about that. Now, the next mask, which is over here on the left side, so if I press the letter O, you can see that's just a linear gradient that's coming in from the left side of the image and fading up to the leaf again. The difference with this one is I did do a little bit of contrast work, and that was really just to kind of fade this into the background. So it's not much going on. Like the background isn't very active, pretty shallow depth of field and things of that sort. So it works out really, really well. And I was just complimenting what was already there. All right. Now, the next one is I wanted to desaturate the background. And I will talk about this for a second because the way that I got to the desaturated background is I used a color mask or a color range mask, and then I used a subject mask to actually subtract that from the color range that was being impacted. So if I go ahead and click on this really quickly and press the letter O, you can see what I got. Now, could I have done this with a background mask? The answer is yes. The reason I did it this way though is I wasn't quite sure if the color variation in the background here was going to become an issue down the line, and maybe I wanted to separate those colors in the image. And then I just decided, you know what, desaturating it is probably the better option because I knew that I was going to do some sort of color grading, and the background itself wasn't really doing much of anything for the overall image. And so if I were to turn this off, you can see it looks nice, and there's nothing wrong with it per se, but it's not quite what I was going for, at least in my mind. So that's the reason why I just went ahead and desaturated it and let that light really take over. And then knowing I was going to place a color grade over top. All right. That was just some forethought that I had. Then we'll move on to the next mask. Now this one is a little bit more unique. It's probably really hard to tell what's happening here, but on the back left side of the image, I went ahead and placed another linear gradient mask just to put a little bit of blue tint into the shadow area. And I think that that just helps with overselling the cinematic look that I was going for to make this leaf a little bit more dramatic. And so that's all that I really did there. I even added some contrast, it looks like, but I really just pulled down on the temperature, and then I also desaturated that area just a little bit. All right. Next, what we have is the leaf enhancement. So if I press the letter O, you can see this is just a selection of the leaf itself. And I actually used a few different masks here. I used the subject mask, and then I just used a brush to paint away this little annoying stem that is down there. All right. So if you're learning anything from this, one, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new, if you want to see more. But really what I think you can take away from this is you got to play around with refining your masks a little bit more to make very deliberate selections, because I do have one coming up where I will talk you through a more refined selection process that I went through. But with that being said, I did use a brush tool, some very simple masking, just painted that away, and it left me with the leaf. And what this does is it just brings a little bit of life to the top part, to the star of the show, the only thing that's really important in the frame, which is this leaf. All right. And everything that's in here is pretty straightforward. I didn't do anything very special. All I did was increase some exposure, boost a little bit of contrast, and then of course worked with the saturation and vibrance. And that's just to help with, like, again, making this leaf come to life. I think I may have added some structure. Yeah, I added some structure, and then I also added some haze. So just some food for thought. Don't worry about these settings, because I think your image is going to require something a little bit different. I was just tweaking this until I've got the look that I was going for with that particular aspect. Now, this next mask, this is a true testament to what we can do in Photo RAW 2026, and that's what I really wanted to show you. All right. Now, this mask, I wanted to work with just the shadow area of the leaf. And so if I turn this off, you can see just the shadow area in this leaf is going to be selected, just like so. All right. And yes, there are some extra tones that are getting selected, and that's okay, because the goal here is to make this as natural of a look with, you know, as much as it looks dramatic like this, but make the edits blend. And that's kind of the goal here. All right. Now let me show you how I created this mask. If I press the letter O, you can see this mask is just in this area, and it's just feathered right there. All right. So if I come up to masking, the first thing that I started with was a subject mask. And let me just turn off everything that's in here so we can really show how it builds up. So I started with a subject mask. I got the whole thing. Then I did my brush thing, and I got rid of that bottom portion. The second thing that I did was I used a gradient mask, and that gradient mask, you can see how it just cuts off the top of the frame here, the mask at least. And if I press the letter O, and then let's get the masking bug, you can see this is where my center line was. And so it's essentially just selecting or leaving everything in the mask that's down here on the bottom left of the frame. So that's kind of the goal. Now, once the mask was created, I just boosted some contrast. I played around with the midtones. I increased them and decreased them. I found that decreasing them was the better option, but I increased the shadows. And so that's always my trade-off with these two sliders. I typically go opposite directions with these two sliders, with the midtones and the shadows. If I increase my midtones, I decrease my shadows, and vice versa. And so that's what I did here. And then I darkened the blacks down just a little bit and added some structure because I wanted that to feel like it was popping off of the page. So that's all that happened there. And when it's all said and done, this is the forming of the light. All right. Now, the next thing that I did is I wanted to jump over to the effects section. So if I come into effects, you can see I didn't go crazy with them. I only added 2 effects. All right. The first one is going to be a color grade. And this color grade, in my opinion, it just helped reform this image and really just hone in on the feel of the image. All right. It isn't one of those things that's super sexy or overly done. It's actually a very subtle approach. I even pulled down on the opacity of this particular slider. So if I pull it up, you can see this is what it looks like at 100%. And I just felt like it's too strong, even though it is pretty subtle and you could live with this I imagine. But I found that 65 is like the sweet spot for the look that I was going for. And so you're probably wondering, well, Chris, what the heck did you actually do with the overall adjustment? Well, I put a little bit of blues into the shadow, and not a whole lot. It's a very subtle amount. And then I put a little bit of yellow orange into the midtones, and I increased their brightness. And then I also put a little bit of yellow greens into the highlights. And that's just to help complement all of the colors that are in there. All right. This is a blue, yellow, feeling type of image. And so that's the color scheme that I really leaned into. That's literally all that I did with the color grade there. And then we have the HDR look. And for me, this HDR look, if I'm not mistaken, these are just the default settings. So whenever you apply the HDR look, that's all this is. So when I turn it on and turn it off, for me, this just balanced out the entire image. It brought crispness and clarity to the leaf. And it also helped with balancing the light across the entire image to make this look like a natural scene. Like the sun was literally in this area shining into the leaf. And so with all of it turned off, again, this is what I came into ON1 Photo RAW with. And then this is what I was able to achieve through a series of masks and then a few effects inside of ON1 Photo RAW. Didn't take this photo anywhere else. And I think that this is a pretty good look. If you're thinking about picking up ON1 Photo RAW, consider using the coupon code FreeWillPhotos20. It'll save you a little bit of money at checkout, and I make a small commission from everyone who uses it, but that's at no extra cost to you. It's a win-win and a great way of supporting the channel. Now, if you want to learn how to use ON1 a little bit faster, consider signing up for a training call with me. I'll meet with you one-on-one and answer your specific questions about photo editing software or ON1 Photo RAW. If that's something you're interested in, check the description box below, click the link, and sign up for a training call. Until the next time, I want you to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.